welcome to 2420. My name is Christine Robinson with the Elks National Foundation, and today I am joined by Jenna Sergio, a 2012 Most Valuable Student Scholar from Arizona. Jenna also served as the Elks Scholar Fellow from April 2016 to July 2018. Welcome, Jenna.
Thanks so much for having me.
So I just want to chat with you today and catch everyone up with what you've been up to, and hear more about what it was like for you to be an Elks Scholar Fellow. So what led you to apply for the Elks Scholar Fellowship? What was that journey like?
Yeah, I got an email from the Elks National Foundation about the opportunity when I was stressed job searching as a senior and wasn't totally sure. I did my undergrad in English because I knew I loved it and it was what I really enjoyed studying, but I didn't have like the clearest path coming out. And so I was kind of looking at a lot of different options and things with nonprofits and stuff because I knew I was passionate about working with people. And I liked good stories of, people who are involved in their communities. And so this just seemed like a really cool opportunity, especially when I realized it was leading service trips. And spending time with college students, which I had worked in residence life throughout undergrad and loved like the support aspects of just like being around for college students as they like develop and grow. And so that just seemed really interesting to me of like getting to support Elks scholars on these trips, but also getting to be really involved with service and kind of see what that looked like in different places across the US. So I put in an application and I was so thankful that it worked out and I got the opportunity because it was such a fantastic experience for me.
Awesome. Yeah, and you definitely got to work with people because that's like totally what the service trips are about. Yeah. So during your time as the fellow, you ran the Elks Scholar service trips. Can you give the audience just a general idea of what the trips are like?
They're fantastic. You bring up to 20 people together that largely have never met, never had like gotten to know each other, are from different places across the US, go to different college campuses. And you come together for the purposes of like connecting and getting to like, hear each other's stories as Elks scholars, but also really to come alongside communities that we happen to be in for these trips and understanding issues that are going on and then giving back. So you spend the whole week at different service sites each day. And there's like always like fun, right? Like you always get to hang out, make good memories, but it's also a lot of hard work. Like we did a lot during those days. And then our evenings were usually time to like do cultural exploration. So kind of see the city and the area we were in, learn about it. And then debrief at night by doing activities to kind of talk through what we'd seen that day, what we'd experienced, and kind of what people were thinking through as a result. So it's this crazy, like really awesome experience. It's a full week, but at the same time, it flies by because you get to really enjoy the people you're with. And so it feels like it always goes a little too fast.
Yeah, I'm sure. And we always hear about how like well bonded the scholars are almost immediately on the trips.
Yeah, so it's kind of crazy. Night one, you're like, everybody introduce. And night two, you're like, have you guys known each other for a long time? Like, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. And another component of the service trips is that the scholars get to meet local Elks that are in the areas of where the service trips are taking place.
Yeah, you get to meet. We try to usually partner with more than one lodge in the area, so sometimes 2 or 3, and go and like make sure that these students got to meet people who had supported them, who were part of, funding these scholarships. And it was always cool to see those connections happen really quickly too. Because usually it's, over an hour or 2 long dinner, but to see them like talking at the end, and often Elks members were like giving out their contact info at the end to like support these students. And it's just really cool to see how invested they are in them as individual people.
Yeah, and that's a connection that we don't always get to witness, right? Like scholars, when they're able to, are able to visit lodges, but it's not something that we always from the national side get to see. So it's awesome to have someone on the ground with that as that's all happening.
Yeah, and I think it's cool for those like Elks scholars to see people who are setting an example of being involved in their community. Like it's always people who are doing a lot of service. So on a service trip, to connect that to these people who are like, not only have helped fund your scholarship, but also are like setting this example of being super involved in their community and knowing what issues are going on. They usually knew the service sites we'd been at. It was like very cool, I think, connection for them to see people kind of leading by example when it comes to service.
Yeah, for sure. Especially the Elks are obviously so charitable, so
Yeah.
those go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Which trips did you attend and lead?
So I attended the DC trip to kind of like shadow. At that point, Marianne was still the Elks Scholar Fellow, and I just needed to learn a lot from her. So I got to go on that trip and kind of see how she did it. And then I led 2 Chicago trips, one to Asheville, one to Santa Monica, one to Dallas, and then got to participate in the San Antonio trip, the 150 for 150, which was like the perfect culmination of all those trips. It was really cool to see.
And did you say New Orleans?
And New Orleans, yes, thank you.
We have a really great video, which I think we can link somewhere from the New Orleans trip. That was
an awesome trip.
Mm-hmm. And okay, so you talked about 150 for 150. So along with Marianne Slater and John Kavula, who both either had already been the Elks Scholar Fellow or were coming into that role, you planned 150 for 150, which is the biggest service trip to date. Can you just tell us briefly about that?
Sure. I mean, it was awesome. I think it was so many people were involved in making that happen. And it was really cool to see how excited Elk Scholars were to come to that and to be at that, like how honored they were to like show up and get to, you know, reconnect with people they already knew as Elk Scholars or as Elks members, or get to know new Elk Scholars and Elks members. And just spend like that week in service. So it, you know, kind of had a feel to a traditional service trip, but then at the end to have like all 150 people at a service site, like all connecting together, and to have it like line up with the conference where you got to meet a lot of Elks members more than you typically would on a trip. It was just this really neat experience of like just watching Elks Scholars and Elks members come together and care about a community and celebrate all the Elks does, and continue to watch relationships build between those scholars and those members, and community members, as we also got involved in doing, you know, service in San Antonio.
Yeah, it was just like a flood of red shirts because all the scholars were wearing red shirts, and to see so many scholars in one place was just incredible. And then to walk into the convention center on the day that the scholars served side by side with the Elks, like that was a really cool experience. We've got so many great videos from then too, and just to see those connections happening was awesome. And recently, well, I guess it's been probably a year ago, Jacob Fritchie and Gabby Hare, 2 Elk Scholar Fellows who were both top 20 in different years, came to the building, and we got to meet and touch base with them. But they met at 150 for 150. So they have had this like awesome friendship that's blossomed out of their time on that trip. So that was just really cool to hear that as well, because, you know, we knew that those connections would happen, but it's hard to track 150 scholars meeting and like what their connections are like after. So it's really neat to know that they're bonded and they stay in touch. And there's lots of other friendships that have come out of those trips too. But
yeah, totally.
So what was your favorite part of being an Elks Scholar Fellow?
Without a doubt, the Elk Scholars themselves, like just getting to meet so many of them, and a lot of them would come back on a trip too. And that was really special because you got to actually like really know their stories, and you got to really see their skill sets too, as like they would maybe come on a trip, and then the next trip they'd serve as like the Elk Scholar leader, and they'd help facilitate things and share why these trips meant so much to them, why the service meant so much to them, why the Elks members they'd met they were still talking to. So just getting to meet people who were so passionate about service, so thankful to the Elks for all they had done for them, and who were really aware of looking outside of themselves, right? Like they were on a college campus, but they were very aware of like, how can I invest in students around me, in the community around me? How can I give back? Because Elks has set an example of doing so much for me. So just getting to know those students, I still talk to some of them. Some of them did like a group FaceTime right at the beginning of COVID, and they were like, hey, jump on with us. And I got to chat with some of them. So just getting to know them and still getting to like follow their lives, it's just been really cool.
That's awesome. A group, that's from the time when everyone was doing group Zooms and FaceTimes
Yeah.
and stuff, right?
It's like every other night.
Yeah. I miss people.
Yeah.
Do you have like one thing that you learned from planning the service trips that's been applicable in your career outside of the fellowship?
Yes, I use so much from the fellowship position in my normal career now. I mean, I continued to work in higher ed because through the fellowship position, I was like, I love working with college students. Like, I love watching them develop. I love that they're passionate about what they're doing. So actually being in that position is what kind of encouraged me to stay in higher ed and continue to support college students. But I would say I learned a lot about, people being so different and needing different things. And on those trips, learned a lot about how to lead different, types of people and how to be present and how to listen well and how to kind of call out the great things in them and be like, you should facilitate this, you should lead this. And I now get to apply that to the students I work with, which is really cool. And all of everything that goes into the trip planning, like, is so much organization and detail oriented and logistics and working with people. And I absolutely use that in my day-to-day. So it's really cool. When I'm interviewing for jobs, there's a huge chunk from this fellowship on my resume, and I often talk about it and use those examples because I just learned a lot about how to connect with people, how to advocate for people, and how to logistically plan things that are meaningful for people and allow them to connect.
Awesome. And so what have you been up to since your fellowship in 2018?
So I worked in residence life at University of Michigan, and got to supervise students and kind of the same work, just really make sure students are feeling supported as they develop in college and that no one's falling through the cracks, but everyone has access to resources and feeling supported and kind of knowing what's on their campus. And then I do the same thing largely, but with graduate students and families now at University of Colorado. So yeah, still working in student affairs. And I'll start my master's part-time in January. And it's been cool because I'm truly on this path because being in that fellowship position confirmed a lot of things for me about working with people, and about making sure students feel supported and seen and have a great experience connecting with other people.
Awesome. And so you're starting your master's in January, you said?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, part-time while I keep working. Yeah.
What are you going to study?
Higher ed and student affairs.
Oh,
so
great.
I'm all in.
That's so cool. And will you go to school where you're working?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it should work out pretty well. It'll be, I think, a good balance. I'm a little nervous about homework again because I haven't done that in a while, but I think it'll be good and I'll do it pretty slowly. So it should be reasonable.
Yeah. Plus there's lots of time right now.
Yeah, I could not have more time right now. So I was might as well jump into this. So
awesome. Okay, so this is the last question and it comes from Jim. He wants to know what board games have you been playing during quarantine?
Oh, so many board games, including one he actually gave me when I left as Elks Scholar Fellow, Splendor. We've been playing that one a lot, going back to that. Azul lots. We've been getting back to some card games. But yeah, I truly have so much time for board games right now. Checked out, I don't know if you've ever played Haunting on Hill House.
I haven't, but I think I've heard of it.
It's so long. You're in it for an hour. But again, could not have more time right now. So filling lots of the evenings with board games, which has been fun.
I bought Codenames because I love Codenames, and I was thinking this is a perfect 2-player game. It's not. I didn't buy there's duet.
Yes, maybe? That's the 2-person one.
Yep, didn't buy that. Tried to have a computer playing, it didn't work.
There's ones you can play online. We've been doing Codenames with groups of people. I didn't know about Codenames, so we played it at that Elks team building lunch one time. Mm-hmm. And I was like, this is so fun. But yeah, that's a good one to do right now.
It's so fun. Categories is a good 2-player game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We've played that a bit. Okay, well, that was the most important question. No, just kidding. Do you have anything else you'd like to add?
Oh, I just am so thankful for the experience I had as Elks Scholar Fellow. I can't recommend it enough to other Elks Scholars. I just feel really, really invested in by the Elks National Foundation, from scholarship to, it's been 8 years since I got that scholarship, and I still feel like Elks family just like shows up for me in different ways. And I have just been really thankful to be a part of this family. So I miss you all in Chicago, but I just truly am so thankful for my connection with you all.
We miss you too. You're always such a like bright, positive, smiley presence.
Oh, thank you. Well, yeah, I hope I'll see you all at some point when we can travel again. I'll have to pop up to Chicago at some point. So.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Jenna. And thanks to everyone for tuning in. If you liked the show, hit the like button below and be sure to subscribe to the ENF's YouTube channel. We'll see you next time.
Bye.